gentlemen. Thank you, CIO&Leader, for having us here. I think coming in after some of the esteemed speakers who've been here is always a difficult task. What we've seen over the last 1 year, foundation models have brought in an inflection point. An inflection point which started with a massive, massive hype. That hype started settling down. People started engaging with meaningful use cases. And as we move further, we're seeing a lot more that's getting channelized in the right way. Now, while these foundation models have created an inflection point, whether enterprises can unlock business value will depend on how they execute and adopt this GenAI within their enterprise. It's about how do I extend the whole GenAI piece across the breadth of the enterprise, across elements of your workflows, your business automation, across threat management, across elements of application modernization. And we'll talk about a bit on some of these as we talk through the session. Customer care, one of the most important elements, one of the biggest elements that we've seen traction on. Elements of IT ops and IT automation. Physical asset management for some of these large asset companies as well. Now, if I go back the last 1 year, we've been on a maniacal drive on driving client briefings and driving pilots. We would have done about 1,400 pilots across the globe. Right here in India, we would have done about 75 odd pilots. Now, as we ran through these experiences with our clients, there are a few things that were very, very clear, and they, for lack of a better word, I would call them 5 key enterprise considerations. The top 2 in there, in terms of moving ahead with GenAI, the first one is actually the whole ROI piece. And why does the ROI piece really come in? It comes in because the hyperscalers today in the market are driving a hammer and a nail approach. There is a 200 billion or a 250 billion parameter model that comes in to run a customer chatbot. You are never going to get the ROI. So how do I have the right model for the right use case? And that is what becomes the most critical aspect. And as we started driving these pilots, we realized that was the core thing. While tons of pilots were happening, they were not moving from a pilot to a production environment because the whole ROI itself was not making sense. And that's exactly what we started getting into. The other aspect that started coming in is the whole aspect is hybrid. So how do I do this on-premise? How do I do it on the cloud? How do I do it across multiple clouds? That became the other element which was very, very critical. The third element, which is absolutely core to all of this, is the trust element, is the governance element. How do I have that AI governance? And we'll talk more about this as we go through the presentation. The data governance, the AI governance is the core part. The next piece is data matters. There is no AI if you do not have quality data. So how do I lay the AI-ready data foundation becomes a core element. And the last thing is enterprises, clients need support as they move from pilots to production. So if I were to talk about what do we as IBM bring onto the table, we launched Watson X about a year back, and exactly about a year back, September, a little less than a year, September last year. And there are 3 pillars within the whole Watson X platform. The first one is what we call as the watsonx.ai, and this is a lifecycle management platform that cuts across the on-premise and the hybrid cloud, your multiple hyperscalers, your ability to run practically anything and everything, which is right from stuff that's happening on Python, Jupyter notebooks. You will have ML. ML is absolutely there to stay. The ML elements, the LLM elements, how do I have a platform that does lifecycle management for the entire piece across the board? Your ability to bring in all the latest LLMs that exist in the open source world, be it the likes of Mistral, be it the likes of Llama, the Llama 3.1 that just got launched, your ability to bring in IBM's own models as well as bring your own models. How do I have a platform that lets you do all of this? It's not one platform that decides the whole element, one use case that defines, but you keep evolving. So you need to have a platform that can accommodate all of these. The other element is what you call as the data platform, the what's next.data. This is an open data format, and Srini spoke about it briefly. This is an open data platform built on Iceberg. Your ability to, the whole customer data platform paradigm is shifted to something what you call as schema-less. The whole paradigm of customer data platform is shifting. So how do I have something which is an open data platform that sits on top of an object store or an S3 or a blob and gives you an ability to get you to a performance. So it's like a Iceberg open data platform with multiple query engines that give you the performance that you need. And you're talking about a performance which, so the Presto engine was a Java engine, and IBM has now rehashed it into something called as Prestissimo, which is a C++ engine, which is a 10x structured query performance. So it's a lake house which can give a performance which comes as close as possible to the data warehouse. And we just announced a benchmark a few weeks back where we matched the Databricks performance at half the price. So that's the direction we're getting into, data warehouse at the price of a data lake. What's the next dot? Governance. Governance, as I said, is one of the core elements of the whole story. When you're talking about a regulated industry, the core aspect of explainability, you can't say that this is a black box and you reject a home loan, you've got to explain to the RBI auditors why you've rejected the home loan. So the explainability part of it. Bias, how do I prevent gender bias? How do I prevent caste bias? How do I prevent drift? What you start with is very different a couple of months later. Your data sets keep changing, the whole intent of what you had started with drifts. How do you measure that drift? How do I prevent hallucination as you move to GenAI? How do you prevent profanity? How do you prevent hate profile? The fascist remark, all of us saw that and the furor it created, right? How do I prevent PI information? There is DPDP Act around the corner getting enforced. So how do I prevent all of these? How do I have a very, very strong governance mechanism that puts you, gives you all the guardrails that you need to bring in? Now, as we do all of this, in fact, some of the amazing use cases and all the speakers before me actually did a brilliant job on laying this out. One of the most popular ones is Talk to My Data, and Talk to My Data for a customer experience, for a agent assist. One of the most popular, almost 70% of the pilots we would have run would have been on Talk to My Data. The other aspects are around marketing, hyper-personalization. How do I do a hyper-personalization which integrates with your MarTech platform with all the guardrails that you need? And this is where your story of schema-less that we spoke of, if I have a siloed data environment, how do I make sure I have a MarTech platform that can consume all the siloed data I have, and which is where the whole schema-less story becomes very, very important. The aspects of application modernization, and this is becoming extremely important here. So we did this for a large bank and a telecom giant. This is a software test use case. How do I start with a BRD, a business requirements document that translates it into test use cases, runs those scripts, does the functional testing, 95% of the functional testing, rolls it out onto a load runner and gets the performance testing done as well. The end-to-end aspect of a BRD, something that would take weeks and months, got done in days. And that's the direction it started picking up. So it's like art of the possible. We just finished a POC with a large conglomerate on intelligence sourcing. Their biggest problem was the typical OCR engines talk about 300 DPI, talk about 250 DPI. They have all of these invoices which are 80 DPI, or handwritten invoices, or multilingual invoices. So how do I change that aspect of entity extraction using GenAI and getting it into the SAP system? The next aspect was, when the invoice is done and there is a PO, how do you tally and correlate the whole aspect and get that whole piece going? So it's like it's art of the possible. You name your pain point, and in all possibility you will have GenAI which can give you the ability to go solve it. Now let's come to automation. Now as this GenAI piece explodes, In fact, the prediction says that we will have more than 1 billion native apps, cloud native apps that are going to get created over the next few years. And what that means is it's going to be an explosion in every enterprise as you see GenAI getting embraced. How do you now have an automation backbone? How do you lay the foundation of automation backbone to be able to cater to address this? GenAI is creating that problem for you as well. It plays the role on the other side of addressing that problem as well. So how do I have automation platforms that are GenAI enabled? Let's start with the API element. If there are some bankers here who run 15, 20,000 APIs, I'm sure all of you will have that major concern that there is very minimal documentation that exists. How do I have GenAI come in and figure out what is that API intended to do? The next aspect that starts coming in is how do I do API testing with GenAI? How do I bring in governance around the whole API backbone using GenAI? So a whole bunch of things that have started coming in. Let me take two more examples. There is an example of observability. Now, observability is about how do I, let's say an UPI going down in a bank. The APM tool telling you that UPI is down means nothing. You anyways know that UPI is down. How do I have that observability tool deep trace to the last dot on what caused that problem? That's the core aspect. Now, that whole piece is moving to the next level, which is about how do I do intelligent remediation? So how do I bring in GenAI not only to detect that problem, but also give the next best action and execute on that action? And when I say execute on that action, it is like the GenAI writing the Ansible YAML code and actually executing on that action and automating that action. And as we talk, we've been running some pilots across some of the large enterprises on automating on this. The next aspect is an aspect we launched just a few weeks back. I know my time's up, just a minute more. This is about a 360-degree view of your environment, a 360-degree view of your entire landscape. How do I unlock insights with GenAI? How do I get concrete and actionable recommendations that can trigger automated actions? And across what? Today we will start with two pillars, which is risk and compliance. We're talking about cost, security, and a couple of more pillars coming in as well. So this is like a umbrella manager of manager tool that comes in that gives you a complete view of your organization, a 360-degree view of your organization, gets you handle your risk from a vulnerability perspective, from a security expiration perspective, from a compliance perspective of security enforcement that you need to do, from the FinOps cost perspective elements that come in, the SRE elements that come in, and also the security elements across the board. So on that note, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It was lovely to be here.